HighBridge, a division of Recorded Books, presents The Los Angeles Diaries, a Memoir, by James Brown. Read by Charles Constant. The Los Angeles Diaries. Introduction by Jerry Stahl. Some lives have an arc. Others proceed in a straight line, like Lucifer's, south from whatever ersatz heaven they started in and straight to hell. This is not to say that young James Brown was any kind of angel. Far from it. Like his African-American namesake, James owns a stable of demons commensurate with his talent. Every accomplishment in this extraordinary work, as much a full-bore psychic purge as a mere memoir, stands out not just for its startling prose, almost disturbing immediacy and utter fearlessness, but by the sheer unlikely fact that, after living through what James Brown lived through, the man was able to write at all, and isn't doing his typing on death row. On some level, this entire book is a mediation on the proposition that life, for some of us on the planet, begins in purgatory and never really gets that good again. Consider this passage in all its simple Dostoevsky meets Hubert Selby eloquence. I'm waiting in the car for my mother while she sets fire to an apartment building down the street. I'm 5 years old. What else do you need to know? James' eye for the simple detail, the spot-on, direct, soul-searing truth, has a way of knifing your heart out of your chest before you even know the blade's gone in. This is not an author who traffics in embellishment or self-pity or any of the usual one-down man ship that has become what, for lack of a better term, might be called the MLWH memoir, as in My Life Was Hell or I'm a Badass and You're Not. The author concludes the first paragraph of this snapshot of American family life with another direct, uncluttered, Hemingway-adjacent sentence. When my mother returns to the car, slightly out of breath, we drive to Fisherman's Wharf and have shrimp cocktail for dinner. It's this gift for rendering how, for a child, otherwise known more accurately as a future addict, mundane life exists as a minefield of catastrophe. There lurks an emotional axe murderer behind every daisy, and sometimes a not-so-emotional murderer, who doesn't need an axe to kill you. A look will do. It's less than front-page news that there is no shortage of addict and alcoholic memoirs. What makes the very few great, however, is that the real subject, in the end, is never drugs, any more than the real subject of Napoleon's biography are bullets and tiny shoes. There have been a million tougher-than-thou bad boy chronicles. What makes Brown's the toughest is that this bad boy isn't trying to be bad when he grows to manhood. He's trying not to be. His is the existence of the fiend who's trying to go straight, but just can't stop using. Without, I hope, giving too much away, witness this sentence, a chilling glimpse of life on the straight and narrow, when the man trying to live it is anything but. It's a struggle redolent with much more pain and much more internal and external brutality than any outlaw with a needle in his neck and a Harley at the curb. Someone has been watching me on and off for 16 hours. This is happening at the Easy 8 Motel on MacArthur Boulevard in Oakland. I haven't slept or eaten in 3 days. On the TV, a young woman is fucking 2 men, and I watch them for a while. It's 4 o'clock in the morning, and in a few hours I have to lecture on Huckleberry Finn to a class of undergraduates. Huckleberry Finn. Perfect. The quintessential American boy. Just as James Brown, the boy whose mother went to prison and whose siblings both killed themselves with drugs and alcohol, represents a particular kind of quintessential American man. James Brown speaks the unspeakable truth, and more. He was, as the late Hubert Selby once described himself, a scream looking for a mouth. In the Los Angeles Diaries he has found it. And by the time you finish this astonishing, merciless, acid-in-the-face account of a man, at best reluctantly alive, you may realize that the screams you hear are your own. They are yours. Because with this book, James Brown says all the things we ourselves cannot say, plumbs all the depths we are afraid to plumb, and comes back to give us the news from hell with the wisdom of the damned. The Los Angeles Diaries is more than a great story, more than a brilliant memoir. It is literature of the highest order, and the real miracle is that the author, against all odds, survived to write it. Ladies and gentlemen, prepare to be damned and redeemed. Winter, 1994. Fire. Winter is the season of the arsonist in Southern California. The manzanita and chaparral are dry and brittle, and the Santa Ana winds have begun to blow. They move at gale force. They cross the arid Mojave and whip through the canyons of the San Bernardino Mountains, through the live oak and the pines, the ponderosa, the sugar and coulter, white fir and incense cedar. I know these names because I live in these mountains, 80 miles east of the sprawl of Los Angeles, and I worry when the winds come. I worry about the possibility of fire. I know he's out there, the arsonist. I know he's waiting, like me, for a day of opportunity very much like this. I've seen the Santa Anas uproot trees. I've seen them strip roofing from houses and shatter windows. I've seen them topple big rigs, and once, along the same freeway I'm traveling now, I saw a stop sign flying through the sky. I keep a firm hold on the wheel. The wind hits in sharp gusts and can blow you clean over the line. You have to be ready. You have to hang on tight and keep your eyes on the road. Traffic moves slowly, carefully. No one's taking any chances, making abrupt lane changes, cutting you off, or tailgating. I would like to believe that it's courtesy that dictates our caution, our good manners. Except this is Southern California. I grew up here, and I know better. Danger, or its potential, sometimes brings out the best in us, and I wonder, as I reach to turn on the radio, if maybe it would be a good thing if the Santa Ana winds blew every day, all year round. From time to time, I find myself having to drive into Los Angeles on business, and just the thought of it always fills me with a sense of dread and anxiety. The city has changed and grown immensely since I knew it as a child, and sometimes even the most familiar streets I grew up on, seem barely recognizable. Gated communities have replaced the bungalows and tract homes, and the signs in the windows of the shops and stores are in Vietnamese, Korean, Spanish, occasionally Arabic. Where corner markets once stood, you'll now find mini-malls and Hollywood landmarks. Places like Schwab's and Pandora's Box and the old Brown Derby restaurant have gone the way of the bulldozer. There are more freeways, too, bigger and wider ones, but the traffic has never been worse. But it isn't the unfamiliar that makes me anxious. It isn't the traffic or the crowds or the evolving landscape of architecture and ethnicity. I am a fiction writer who doesn't make enough money at it not to have to do something else for a living. So I teach. So I am a professor. And what Hollywood offers me is the chance to escape the classroom and tell stories full time. Trouble is, I'm not very good at telling stories that pay better, and that's what this is about. It's what it has always been about. My driving into Hollywood to talk to producers and executives who like my work but want me to write something more commercial. In this case, that less commercial work is my last novel and the screenplay I wrote based on it, a screenplay commissioned by Universal and Amblin, both of whom passed on it when I was done. I don't know why you ever bothered to write this, an executive tells me after she finishes reading my script. It's no movie. It's too real. Now the rights are mine, and my agent, who feels differently than the executive, is sending it to other executives and producers in Hollywood. As a sample, he calls it. The idea is not so much to sell the script as it is to sell myself as a script writer. Already, I'm looking forward to the end of the day. The Santa Anas die down as I approach Los Angeles, and I ease up on the wheel. I take a deep breath, but I know it's only temporary, this calm. I know better than to let myself relax. That thing called the L.A. River borders the last stretch of the freeway into Burbank, and I look out on it, the dirty water moving sluggishly through the narrow concrete channel that contains it. Over the rush of the cars, I try to imagine it as I was told it used to be, a real river, filled with trout and salmon and lined with sycamores and willows instead of chain link and barbed wire. But I'm not successful. I think about my brother. I think about my sister. We are children down by that river on a day very much like this, with the wind blowing lightly and the smell of fire in the air. I'm 9 years old, the youngest, and we're passing a bottle around. A bottle I've stolen from a grocery store nearby. My sister points to the sky. "Look, look," she says. "Snow." Only they're ashes. Ashes are falling. Ashes are everywhere, and in the sunlight they appear white, almost translucent. My head is spinning as I laugh. My brother laughs. I can hear us all laughing as we look to the sky, opening our mouths, catching ashes like snowflakes, until our tongues turn black. In the rearview mirror, I check to see if my eyes are clear. They are, and they should be. I've gone without a drink or a drug for 4 days. 4 long, miserable days of white-knuckling it, all because I want to look my best, and I like to think I do. I'm clean-shaven. My hair is freshly cut and neatly combed, and I have on my best Oxford shirt and a brand-new pair of Levi's. But for some reason my heart is beating faster than it should, and every now and then I can't seem to catch my breath. It's nerves. I'm under pressure. I see today's meetings as an opportunity, and I'm keenly aware that the older I get, the less these opportunities will come my way. It's been 6 years between novels, and now with a new one out and a new agent working hard to set up these meetings, there is renewed interest in my writing. But that interest is always fleeting. I think about stopping at a liquor store, but decide against it. Only alcoholics, I tell myself, drink before noon. Everything, I tell myself, is under control. My first meeting is at Disney Studios in Burbank, and I arrive early enough to smoke a couple of cigarettes and try to collect myself. There are no sound stages at this end of the lot, and except for a gardener gathering up his hoses, I am alone on a path that divides 2 generations. On the one side are the older offices, the Hollywood bungalows with stucco exteriors and terracotta roofs and well-manicured lawns. On the other are the multi-storied buildings made of steel and glass. And at the end of this pathway are the executive offices where I soon find myself, on the 3rd floor, seated across the room from a woman maybe 22, 23 at most. I wonder how she came into her position so young, and the only scenarios I come up with have to do with her mother or father or some very good friend. This is just like me, though, to think in the negative, and because I'm aware of it, I'm able to check myself. I don't know this woman. I shouldn't prejudge. I'm here for a job. If not today or next week, then maybe it'll happen for me a year or 2 down the line. And I need to remember that. I need to keep an open mind. For a while, it's small talk. I tell her about my drive from the San Bernardino Mountains, the wind and the traffic. She tells me how bad it used to be when she worked for a law firm in downtown L.A. Now, she says, I can walk to my job. Her office looks as if she's in the process of moving into it or out. I can't tell which. There's a stack of pictures, big framed pictures propped against the couch, and it's either because she's taken them down or hasn't hung them yet. Same with the bookcases. They're empty, and there are boxes and boxes of screenplays all over the place that need to be unpacked or hauled away. I enjoyed your script, she says, but I wouldn't exactly call it Disney material. I mean, it's pretty fucking dark. She seems relaxed and confident, and I wonder if at her age I showed that confidence, or if I've ever had it to show. Certainly I don't now. I look through the window behind her. Outside I can see the tops of the trees swaying in the wind, and it occurs to me, though I immediately push the thought out of my mind, that maybe I don't belong here. On her desk is a bag of peanuts, and every now and then, as we continue to talk, she reaches for one, cracks it open with her teeth, and drops the shells on the carpet. "Are you working on anything new?" "Another script," I say. "What about?" she says, popping a peanut into her mouth. I'm lying. I'm not working on another script, at least not putting words to paper, but then that's what this is all about. To pitch, to sell what you haven't written, and probably never will unless you're paid first. I think my idea is commercial. It starts out in the desert, I say. You see this man all by himself in the middle of nowhere. It's toward nightfall, and at first you can't tell what he's doing. But he's got a long steel pole, and he's jabbing it into the ground. The camera pulls back, and we see hundreds of holes all over the desert floor. He's been doing it all day. And why is he doing this? She asks the question, but I'm not so sure that she's interested in the answer. This does little for my confidence. He's searching for his daughter, I say, checking for soft spots in the ground. The producer shifts in her seat. That's a real cheery opening, she says. I smile awkwardly. I clear my throat. I push on. The next thing we see is a parade of news vans following a sheriff's car into the desert. The killer's in the back seat. "Pull over," he says. He points out the window with his cuffs on, and that's when we cut away to the same scene. Only now we're watching it on TV. It's a videotape, and the killer's face is frozen on the screen. I pause, waiting for her response, but she just cracks open another peanut and pops it into her mouth. The father, the guy we saw in the beginning, we're in his living room now. He's slouched in an old lounge chair staring at the TV, and all around him are empty beer cans and whiskey bottles and half-eaten plates of food. The poor bastard's been playing the same scene over and over. Hasn't moved from that chair in days. I pause again for her reaction, and she gives me a strange look, as if I might be a little over the edge myself for having thought it up. And, in a way, I suppose, she may be right. Christ, don't you write anything light? You want light? I got light. But that's as far as I get. To tell you the truth, she says, we're really not taking on new projects now anyway. But I have a script that could use some work. Maybe you'd like to take a look at it. Of course I would. What I want is a chance, any sort of chance. And in this case, it's a shot at a rewrite of someone else's screenplay, an adaptation of a novel called Going Blind, about a college music professor who's slowly losing his sight and tries to hide the fact from his friends and family and colleagues for as long as he can. He can't face what's happening to him, can't admit to the truth. And I think I can understand that. I think it's something I can work on, even with the changes she wants, which are to set the story in high school instead of college, and make him a football coach instead of a music professor. My first reaction is that it strains credibility to make him a football coach. But it's possible, I suppose. Anything is possible when there's money involved. And before I leave her office, I'm already working on it, trying to imagine different scenes, different predicaments, trying to imagine myself as a man going blind. My next meeting isn't for a couple of hours, and I'm back in my car with nothing to do. I think about getting something to eat. I think about getting a cup of coffee. But I'm nervous and jittery, and what I really want is something to take the edge off. My sister lives nearby in Studio City, and ordinarily, whenever I come into L.A., I drop by and have a couple of drinks with her, do a line, or two, or three. Only these aren't ordinary times. She's quit drinking and using since the death of baby Catherine, and I don't feel welcome in her home anymore. Still, I want her to be clean and sober. Still, I am proud of my sister, and I've told her so. That doesn't mean, however, that I have to follow her example, because I can take it or leave it. I can quit whenever I want. I fumble for my car keys, start the engine, and drive into Hollywood to kill some time. The plan is to hit a bookstore, or maybe cruise by one of my old neighborhoods and see how it's changed, or maybe how it hasn't. Our mother moved around a lot when we were growing up, and it's hard to go anywhere in this city without bumping into some place we used to live. An old apartment complex, some shabby house. I went to 14 different schools before I reached the 9th grade, and one year, the first year we moved to Los Angeles, my brother, sister, and I didn't attend school at all. The area was too rough, our mother said, and she was right. Barry and Marilyn were beat up the first couple of weeks of classes, and I had my share of trouble, too. Until we could afford a better neighborhood, a better school district, our mother thought it best that we ride the year out at home. But today, I don't stick to my plan. I don't go to a bookstore. I don't drive by the old neighborhoods. Instead, I make myself a promise. I'll only have one. Just one. I mean it, too. At the time, I couldn't mean it more. And, of course, after the first drink, I see no harm in having a second, or a third. I sit at the far end of the bar, under the Olympia waterfall, and further justify my being here by reading the script to Going Blind. At least, I tell myself, I am being constructive while I drink. It's good, the way the writer has it, from the point of view of a music professor, and the more I read, the less I'm able to imagine it differently. A teacher who is going blind could make himself intimately familiar with the physical layout of his classroom, and soon learn to move about it with something close to ease. I can buy that. And certainly he could play his instrument, which in this case happens to be the piano. But a blind football coach? What happens when he steps out onto the field? When he has to call a play or simply throw the ball? The drinks have begun to take effect, and I'm able to see things clearly now, for what they really are. The whole idea is fucking ridiculous, and I feel like a fool for ever having gotten my hopes up. That I hoped at all just goes to show how desperate I am, and I hate to think that the producer saw it in me, that desperateness, although I'm sure that she did. Then I start to think about how she kept cracking peanuts while we talked and dropping the shells on the carpet, and how someone would have to clean them up. I bet it won't be her. In fact, I bet she's used to making messes for others to clean up, messes much bigger than peanut shells, and I resent her for it. I resent myself, too, for trying to sell someone a story that I don't believe in and would never write unless I was paid. So I light another cigarette. So I order another drink, and pretty soon I find myself condemning not only the producer who gave me the script, but also the one that I'm scheduled to meet, and never will, because by now I'm too drunk, and by now it's too late. Exactly how long I've been here, I don't know. But when I drink, I often lose complete sense of time, and this is one of those occasions. Once I drove halfway across the state to visit my in-laws for Christmas, a good 500 miles, and I barely remember getting into the car. Suddenly it's 8-9 hours later, and I'm there, parked in my in-laws' driveway, listening to the engine tick itself cool. How I made it without getting into a wreck, maybe killing myself or someone else, is something akin to a miracle. I pick up some change from the bar and head to the payphone on the wall outside the bathrooms and call my sister. She answers on the second ring. "Hey, Marilyn," I say. "Where the hell are you?" "I'm at a gas station. My fan belt broke." "Bullshit." "No bullshit. You should be calling your wife," she says, "not me." There's a long pause. I twist the phone cord around my hand. "Just tell her I'm on my way, okay?" "I'm sick of lying for you." "It's no lie," I say. "Jimmy," she says, "I can hear the fucking music in the background. You better sober up and get your ass home." My wife's name is Heidi, and I know I should call her, that I owe her that much. But I don't want to hear it. Her cursing, her screaming. I know I've done wrong. I know there's no excuse for getting drunk when you're supposed to be home with your family. And I wish knowing this would stop me from doing it. I wish that's all it took, that I could will it to happen. But it doesn't work that way. It never has. And in my state of mind, At this particular moment, I can't imagine living without it. The alcohol, the dope. I've been drinking and using since I was 9 years old, and sometimes I think it's the only thing that gives me any real pleasure. I love the feeling, the rush, that numbing of the brain, that deadening of the senses, or the heightening of them on speed. I need that drink, that pill, that fix to feel better. I need it sometimes just to make it through another day. It's dark out when I finally leave the bar, and the Santa Anas have kicked up again. I'm on Hollywood Boulevard, and even for a weeknight, the streets seem abnormally quiet. Few cars are on the road, and the sidewalks, usually crowded with tourists, are strangely empty. The wind is strong, and I lower my head and lean into it as I walk, in the opposite direction from where I parked. At the corner, there's an old man waiting for the light to change, and I ask him for the time. He doesn't seem to hear me. I repeat the question, only louder. That gets him to glance my way, but again, he doesn't say anything. Maybe he's scared to be out on these streets at night. Maybe he smells the liquor on me, and it offends him. I don't know. When the light changes, he steps off the curb, holding his jacket closed against his chest, and hurries across the street. I walk on. My legs are heavy, and the lights in the windows of the different shops and stores are blurred. For the first time that night, I realize I'm drunk. Too drunk to drive. I need more than coffee to sober up. But I'm in luck. This is Hollywood, and whatever you want, whatever you need is always just around the corner, or a little farther down the block. Tonight I find it outside a run-down apartment complex on a side street between Vine and Cahuenga. 2 Puerto Rican kids are standing on the front steps, and I catch eyes with the smaller one as I walk by. There's a boombox at his feet, and the bigger kid is sipping on a can of Old English 800. "Anything happening?" I say. "What you looking for? Rock, crank, whatever you got." "You a cop?" "I look like a cop?" "Yeah," the smaller one says. "You look like a fucking cop." "You look like a fucking cop too," I say. But I say it in a good way, because I'm in a good mood, because I know I'm about to score. Besides, it's only protocol. If you're a cop and don't say so when you're asked, that's grounds for entrapment. They know it, I know it. And for $50, they point me to a chink in the apartment wall, just a few feet away, where they've stashed a tiny plastic bag of what proves, surprisingly, to be some very potent dope. For another 10, I get a chipped glass pipe that sells new for a couple of bucks, but I'm not interested in bargaining. Like Pavlov's dogs, my mouth is suddenly dry. My heart is beating faster, and I can almost feel it, the rush, without even firing up. I plan to get high in my car, where there's less chance of being seen, and where I'm out of the wind, but it's parked a few blocks away, and I can't wait that long. All the stores on Hollywood Boulevard are closed for the night. I duck into the alcove of a souvenir shop, drop a rock into the pipe, and light up. My back is to the street, and at first, when I feel a wave of heat pass over me, I think it's on account of the dope, the rush, that it's just powerful stuff. But then it happens again, an even stronger wave along the back of my neck, and that's when I realize that it's coming from behind me. Turning, I see it. The building directly across the street is immersed in fire, and it's a beautiful sight. Flames seep through the edges of the roof, and the big storefront windows glow and pulsate like they're breathing. Burning embers dance across the sky. In the powerful Santa Anas, the flames grow fast, and in a matter of seconds they've doubled in size. I look around to see if anyone else is watching, but the streets are empty. This makes me nervous. I'm the sole witness to what is most likely the work of an arsonist, and I don't want to be anywhere near here when the police and firefighters arrive, especially in my condition. Ashes rain from the sky, and I begin to walk. Everything, I tell myself, is under control. I don't remember the ride home that night any better than I do the time I drove halfway across.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?